You were told to get rich, get jacked, get girls, that if you had money, muscles, and attention, you'd finally become a man worth something. But here's the truth no one tells you. Value isn't what you chase, it's what you withhold. A high-value man doesn't need to prove himself. He doesn't broadcast every win. He doesn't beg for approval, affection, or admiration. He is still, while the world moves in chaos around him. Because his worth doesn't come from noise, it comes from discipline, from knowing what to say no to, from being rare in a world that's cheap. See, any man can be loud. Any man can show off what he owns. But a high-value man, he moves like a myth, controlled, selective, and quietly powerful. He's not for everyone. And that's exactly why the world turns to look when he enters a room. So before we talk about what makes a man valuable, let's first unlearn the lies they sold you. Because being high value is not about what you show. It's about what you protect. But before we define what a high-value man is, we need to first uncover why so many men are getting it completely wrong. Most men grow up believing that value is something they must chase, like a trophy handed out to the loudest competitor in the room. They spend years sprinting after superficial validation, approval from women, applause from peers, attention on screens. They buy cars they can't afford, flex paychecks they barely keep, and burn through time chasing bodies they'll forget the morning after. But the pursuit itself is the first mistake. A man who chases is a man who lacks. He lacks presence. He lacks foundation. And most of all, he lacks the inner certainty that he is already enough. That's where most get it wrong. They confuse visibility with value. Just because the world sees you doesn't mean it respects you. In fact, the more you demand to be seen, the less magnetic you actually become. A truly valuable man doesn't need the spotlight. He becomes a gravity that pulls it in. And here's the truth. The moment you stop chasing and start curating your energy, your focus, your presence, you begin to reverse the current. Suddenly, people want to understand you. Women feel your stillness. Men feel your composure. And the world starts asking who you are, not what you can offer. That's when value begins. In silence, in control, in choosing, not chasing. And once you see that chasing value never works, you begin to ask a deeper question. What does real value actually look like in a man? So, what does it mean to be a high-value man, truly? It's not just money, not just looks, not even status. Those things can open doors, sure, but they don't keep them open. At the core of every high-value man is a principle so rare, so overlooked, it feels almost ancient. Selectivity, not just in what he wants, but in what he allows. He doesn't say yes to every invitation. He doesn't jump at every opportunity. And he sure as hell doesn't fall for every woman who smiles his way. Why? Because his time, his energy, his presence are not free-flowing streams. They're guarded gates. Not because he's arrogant, but because he's aware that where he places his attention, he gives away his power. A high-value man is inaccessible by design. He is not in every room. He is not in every woman's phone. He is not easily impressed, nor easily shaken. He has standards, and those standards protect him. He can walk into chaos and remain calm. He can be offered pleasure and still choose purpose. He can be admired and stay unmoved because his worth doesn't spike when eyes are on him. It was forged in private, in the lonely nights where he chose restraint over indulgence, discipline over distraction. And that's what separates him from the crowd. Not what he has, but what he can walk away from. That's the power most men will never understand. But the high-value man lives it every damn day. But being high value isn't just about what you build within yourself. It's also about what that value inspires in others, especially in the way a woman responds to your presence. To understand what makes a man valuable, you must also understand what makes a woman stay. Because value at its highest form is not measured in applause or envy. It's measured in devotion, not forced, not manipulated, but freely given out of respect, admiration, and unshakable trust. Here's what most men get wrong. They try to buy loyalty with gifts, charm, or intensity. But loyalty, real, enduring loyalty, is not something you can purchase. It is something a woman gives when she senses something rare in you, something she can't find in every man she meets. And that something is self-control. When you're a man who can say no, not just to her, but to everything, to temptation, to distraction, to drama, she feels safe. Not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, even spiritually. Because your restraint is her security. Your discipline is her anchor. Now, the modern world has diluted this. It tells her that loyalty is outdated, that sexual freedom is empowerment, that mystery is unnecessary. But the truth is deeper. A high-value woman doesn't give her body to every man. She doesn't need to parade her image across every screen, because she knows what's sacred and she keeps it sacred. In the same way, a high-value man doesn't need to possess a woman to feel powerful. He creates the kind of presence that makes her choose him again and again, even when she has other options, not because he's louder, but because he's centered, rooted, unshakable. This is a psychology that fuels true feminine loyalty, not control, not pressure, but the quiet certainty that this man doesn't need her to complete him. And that's exactly why she stays. Still, many men believe if they just earn enough loyalty, love, and respect will naturally follow. But money, without substance, can only take you so far. We live in a world obsessed with wealth. Every headline screams about net worth. Every post shows off the car, the suit, the home with the perfect view. And most men, without even realizing it, buy into the myth that if they just stack enough money, everything else will fall into place. But money is only an amplifier. It doesn't create value. It reveals it. Give a disciplined man money, and he becomes more powerful. Give a weak man money, and he becomes more reckless, more impulsive, more what he already was. That's the brutal truth. Money without character is a liability. It gives you options you haven't earned the strength to handle. And without strength, options don't liberate you, they destroy you. The high-value man understands this. He doesn't use wealth to impress. He uses it to create freedom, to build structure, to protect peace. And perhaps most importantly, he never lets his bank account define his masculinity, because real masculinity isn't loud. It isn't dressed in labels. It doesn't need validation from strangers. Meanwhile, the man who relies solely on money to attract women is playing a dangerous game. He's not building connection. He's negotiating terms. And deep down, both he and the woman know if the money disappeared, so would she. That's not loyalty. That's dependency. A truly high-value man never forces a woman to compromise, not on attraction, not on desire, not on respect, because he brings more than wealth. He brings presence, principle, power, and stillness. And when a man possesses all three, he becomes the kind of man money simply cannot buy. And that's why the men who rely on wealth alone end up surrounded, but never truly valued. Because in a world of noise and constant access, it's the inaccessible man who stands out. There's something magnetic about what you can't quite reach. A locked door, a guarded man, a presence that doesn't beg to be noticed, yet somehow commands every eye in the room. That is the power of inaccessibility. You see, in a world where everyone is oversharing, overexposed, constantly broadcasting every meal, every thought, every fleeting desire, a man who holds back becomes a mystery. And mystery is irresistible. A high-value man understands this instinctively. He's not everywhere. He's not available on demand. You can't slide into his life like a casual DM, because he's not building connections by accident. He's building legacy with intention. And it's not just about playing hard to get. No, that's a tactic for boys. This is about living with boundaries. Real boundaries. Boundaries that protect your peace, your energy, your values, not from fear, but from standards. When a man becomes too accessible, he becomes too common. And what is common is never treasured. He may be talented, even successful, but if everyone can reach him, then no one values reaching him. The high-value man is like a rare stone buried deep beneath the surface, not because he's hiding, but because his worth requires effort. You don't stumble into his world. You earn your place in it. And women feel this. They feel in his pauses, in his silence, in the way he doesn't chase, doesn't need, doesn't beg. He simply exists with presence and lets the right people come forward because he knows. The less you give to everyone, the more you mean to someone. And the reason he can remain distant, composed, untouchable, is because he's mastered the one trait that separates boys from men: self-control. At the center of every high-value man is restraint, not because he is cold, but because he is in control. In a world that tells men to indulge, to take, to conquer without pause, the man who can master his appetite becomes a rare force. Because self-control is not the absence of desire. It is a refusal to be ruled by it. A man who cannot say no to the drink, to the woman, to the impulse to lash out or chase validation, is not free. He's a slave to his own urges. And no matter how wealthy he is, how admired he might seem, deep down, he is not in command of his own life. But the man who can pause, who can breathe through the fire, who can choose stillness in the face of temptation, that man is powerful beyond measure, because that man is trustworthy, not just to others, but to himself. He doesn't make decisions from hunger. He makes them from clarity. He doesn't chase women. He chooses a partner. He doesn't splurge to impress. He builds to endure. And when conflict arises, he doesn't explode. He calculates. He observes. He leads. True masculinity is not chaotic. It is composed, not reactive, but intentional. And the discipline to hold back, to choose principle over pleasure, is what separates the man who is impressive from the man who is respected. Because in the end, power isn't how much you can take. It's how much you can control and still remain unmoved. That's the man other men follow. That's the man women remember. And that's the man you become the moment you master yourself. And when self-control becomes second nature, you no longer chase power. You embody it. That's when you stop asking who the high-value man is and start becoming him. So now you know, being high value has nothing to do with how loud you are, how many women want you, or how much money sits in your account. It has everything to do with how well you know yourself and how fiercely you protect what matters. Because real value is built, not broadcasted. It's built in silence. In the early mornings when no one is watching. In the disciplined decisions no one applauds. In the restraint you show when everything inside you says given, but your purpose says hold the line. A high-value man doesn't become who he is by accident. He chooses it. Every single day. He chooses discipline over desire, direction over distraction. He chooses quality over quantity, with his thoughts, his time, his relationships, and his vision. And the world, it senses that. Women feel it. Men respect it. And opportunities, the kind that don't knock twice, they begin to find their way to you. So, if you're tired of being overlooked, tired of feeling replaceable, tired of living like every other man out there, then stop chasing what's easy and start becoming what's rare, because the blueprint has been laid out for you. Now, all that's left is to build it. If this message spoke to you, if something deep inside you stirred while listening, then this wasn't just a video. It was a mirror, a reminder of the man you were meant to become. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. So don't just scroll away and forget. Subscribe, not for me, but for the version of you that refuses to settle. The man who demands more from himself every single day. Hit that like button if this made you pause. And share it with a brother who needs to hear this truth. Because high-value men don't rise alone. They rise together. And if you're ready to go deeper, to get personalized guidance, to rebuild from the inside out, click the link below and let's get to work. Because this life, it doesn't reward the loudest. It rewards the most disciplined. And you're just getting started.